Media Matters has named Fox News host Glenn Beck Misinformer of the Year for 2009. Well, the not-for-profit organisation says he uses his channel to organise conservatives against President Obama. Well, let's get more now from RT's Lauren Lister and our Washington studio. Lauren, good to see you. So what has Glenn Beck done wrong exactly?
Well, Alice, according to this group, it's for using distortion, such as calling Democrats in Washington, D.C., comparing them to Nazis, or calling U.S. President Barack Obama a Marxist. Here to speak more about what impact this is having on American public opinion, this kind of opinion-based programming, is Joel Silberman. He's a media strategist. Now, Joel, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
At the same time this group is calling Glenn Beck a misinformer, this commentator's ratings far trump the competitors on other cable news networks. So why is this a problem, and how is it shaping public opinion?
Well, it's a problem because he's not a news commentator, he's an entertainer. And let's start with that. Two, let's admit that hatred as a motivating and unifying emotion is stronger than news to inform citizenry and allowing them to make informed decisions in a democracy. So the news people are at a terrible disadvantage because when you're reporting the news, it's supposed to be dispassionate. Your emotions are supposed to be engaged after the news, not during the news. It's not an entertainment show. We don't vote you off the island because the news is reporting it.
Okay, but at the same time, right or left, the cable news networks are moving towards opinion-based programming during primetime news hours, except for CNN, which is still showing news, but their ratings are just trailing behind. So what does this mean about what people want to see? Are people interested in news anymore?
I'm not sure whether people are interested in news the way you say it. I will say that people are less interested in continual opinion all the time. This is a permanent campaign. MSNBC News is now the place for politics. CNN is called the best political team in broadcasting. Those don't necessarily mean news to me, they mean politics. And I think politics is important, but it's not the only news. I think BBC or PBS when I think news. Those are the places when I think about news being reported. So what is it? It's ratings. It's when the membrane between editorial and publishing becomes this permeable space rather than an impenetrable door that we actually see the kind of news we're getting.
So what's the problem with that? I mean, to what extent is U.S. media now able to push a partisan agenda, or to what extent are they pushing a partisan agenda?
Well, I think the problem with that more than anything else is that we don't value our journalists anymore in the same way that we used to in broadcast. There was a time when you had to justify your FCC license by providing news as part of your community responsibility, and that's how you renewed your license. When the FCC was gutted in the 1980s under the Reagan administration and its power was lost, the Fairness Doctrine was jettisoned, all of a sudden we had news that became part of the entertainment company. News can never, ever be revenue justified. News is expensive. If you're going to go cover the war in Afghanistan, which is barely being covered right now, you actually have to have people in the field, and that's expensive to maintain.
So is this trend going to continue? Is this the direction of news programming?
Well, I think that the Internet is going to be the place in which we get a lot more of our news. I think citizen journalists are going to come to the fore, as they did in Iran when there was no way to get news out of the country except on a telephone. So I think we're going to see more and more of Internet and wisdom of crowds being the way in which we get our news. I don't like it, but I will tell you that until we have some kind of system where news is no longer about revenue and no longer about money, yes, this is the news that we're going to get.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us and weighing in. And with that note, we're going to send it back to you in Moscow.
Okay, Lauren, many thanks to you and your guest. Lauren Lister there talking to media consultant Joel Silberman.